Hey everyone, I'm Rohn Strong from Rohn Strong Designs, and I'm so excited because today we're going to do my very favorite thing in the quilting world, make flying geese. Now I'm going to show you how to make them using the stitch and flip method, and we'll get some bonus half square triangles out of each flying goose. Where's the geese? We'll figure it out along the way. So before we get started, let's talk about the Annie's Creative Quilters Fabric Club. I love this fabric club, and I could just talk about it for days. Basically, in a nutshell, every single month, sent straight to your front door, you get a perfectly curated collection of 6 different fat quarters. All you got to do is sign up for one low price, and it's pretty affordable, you guys. And you get these beautiful fabrics and a free pattern to use with the fabrics or to just add to your collection. I mean, we all need some extra patterns for random things like pillows and mini quilts and things like that, right? Right. I know you guys, we're quilters, we speak the same language. As soon as my box arrived this month, I ripped it open and I was so excited. It was a collection of 6 different batik fabrics from Timeless Treasures. It was called Tonka Day Spa, and it was designed by Danielle Stout. I absolutely loved these fabrics. And as soon as I saw them, I knew that I wanted to do something that would allow the fabrics to shine, and that meant make some really big flying geese. Now, as I was making it, I thought, I have to share this with my friends at Annie's because it's just so easy to do and it's so much fun, and you don't waste any fabric. We don't have to worry about sewing on the bias, and with your 6 fat quarters, you can make a pretty large wall hanging. I can't say enough great things about the Creative Quilters Fabric Club. So I'm just going to tell you to click the link in the description down below. After you've signed up, come on back, learn how to make some stitch and flip flying geese with bonus half square triangles with me, and you can make this beautiful quilt hanging on the wall behind me. It's so easy. You guys won't believe it. This came together in just an afternoon. So to make our stitch and flip flying geese with our bonus half square triangles, we're going to need a few things today. Now we're just going to make one block, and if you want to make the wall quilt hanging behind me, you're going to need a total of 12 blocks. And I just sew them together, 2 blocks wide and 6 blocks down. That's it. To make these, as I said in our kind of little introduction, you're going to need one square that's 8.5 inches by 16.5 inches, and you're going to need 2 8.5-inch squares. So here's the rule of thumb to make these particular flying geese. And like I said, we're using the stitch and flip option, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But you can make these any size. You don't have to make giant flying geese like I am today. You can make just regular old, kind of smaller flying geese using this method. It's totally up to you. The number one rule is to make sure that the height of your rectangle, your individual goose, if you will, the height of it needs to be half of the total length. So this is 8.5. and the total length is 16.5. And we have to take the finished measurement. So this block will finish at 8 by 16 inches. So let's say you wanted to make a smaller goose that's going to be 2 inches by 4 inches finished. That means that your base rectangle needs to be 2.5 by 4.5 inches for the rectangle, and then you'll have 2 smaller squares of your background fabric, and those will be 2.5 inches apiece. That's really the most important thing. Your height needs to be half of your length, and those are your finished measurements. Remember, we need to add that 1/2 inch to both the height and width to account for our 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Now, the reason that we're doing our 8.5 inch squares that are going to measure the same as the height of our rectangle is because we want a little bit of overlap. So when we combine our 8.5 and 8.5, it's actually going to, that would make 17, right? So it doesn't make sense that it would fit on our 16.5-inch rectangle, but it totally will because we want it to overlap a little bit in the center to make sure that we get a 1/4 inch seam so we get perfect points every single time. Triangles, it's that easy. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to do this all at once. So just follow me along. I'm gonna take my 8.5 by 16.5-inch rectangle, just gonna plop it up there. Now I'm gonna take these 2 8.5-inch squares, and I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. Now it's very important that this line goes exactly corner to corner. We just want to get everything lined up, and I'm using just a fabric marker here. I wouldn't recommend using that if you're worried about bleed through or sewing or anything. This is just so you guys can see it on camera. And then what you just saw me do is I drew a line from corner to corner. Now I'm going to position my ruler, and I'm going to place a 1/2 inch line that's on my ruler on top of the line that I just drew, and I'm essentially going to draw another line a 1/2 inch away from the line that I drew. And then we'll draw another line. Now what this is going to do is give us 2 sewing lines. So when we're making our flying geese, we'll sew on one line, then we'll flip and we'll sew on the other. You'll notice that one line is in the corner, the other line is a 1/2 inch away. This portion here is going to be our bonus half square triangle. This is going to be part of our goose. Does that make sense? All right, so let me do it on my second square. We'll do it one more time. I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. Making sure I'm being really careful, getting it right in that corner. Then I'm going to draw another line a 1/2 inch away from that. Okay. And that's all we have to do right now. I'm going to keep this ruler handy, and I have my rotary cutter handy as well. Now, I'm going to grab my 8.5 by 16.5 inch rectangle, and I'm going to place my 8.5 inch square right on top. And here's where placement matters. My corner of my square is perfectly in the corner of my base rectangle. And then I'm just going to line everything up and make sure it's all set to go. You'll notice that my second line, that is a 1/2 inch away from the corner to corner line, is facing outwards in the part that we would normally cut off in our stitching after we've stitched along this line here. You have to make sure that this is facing out. If it's facing in, it's not going to work. You're just going to end up with a seam that's 1/2 inch in. And trust me, I might have sewed a couple of the blocks in that quilt behind me like this. So it's just always easy. Make sure it looks like this, and you'll be good to go. All right, so I've went ahead and I've sewn both of these seams, and next I just need to cut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure about 1/4 inch from either line. Just choose one, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Now I'm going to finger press the one side of my goose open, and we have a perfect one side of the flying geese. Now I'll go ahead and press this before I move on to the second part. But the really cool thing is, here is a 1/2 square triangle from our little bonus. Now, I would obviously trim this down a little bit. I would go ahead, I think I found the easiest measurement was 7.5 inches square. This measures, I believe, about 7 3/4. You should get it right around there. So I would just square this up to 7.5 inches, and it would be perfect to include as a pieced backing or a whole nother quilt. So let's go ahead and do the second side. I'm going to leave this open, and I'm just going to leave it finger pressed. You can go ahead and press it if you want. Again, I'm going to grab my square here, and I'm going to line it up in the corner. And this time, our line is going to go from the bottom left corner, because I did the right side of our goose first. We're going to go to the bottom left corner, and you want to make sure that here at the top you have an overlap And you'll be able to see, I can see it here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. If you are, I'll make sure to zoom in. But with my pen, I'll show you that right here, where the two pieces of white fabric overlap, I can see this side, the right side of the goose, underneath, and it's overlapping, and I'm able to see that there's going to be about a 1/4 inch of overlap there. That's exactly what I want. And now, again, we have these two lines. I'll come in here with my ruler, measure about a 1/4 inch away, cut. Then I'm going to open this up, and I can already see that I'm going to be in such great shape. Now I can take my ruler and I can line this up here, and I can see that I am just a hair. I'm just a hair over a 1/4 inch. So that means that when I'm seaming these together in rows, I'll have plenty of room here to make sure that I get a perfect point every single time. If you really want to make sure that you get perfect points every single time, you'll notice that I pressed my fabric towards the light instead of the dark on the Flying Geese units. Whereas on our half square triangle units, I pressed the seam towards the dark. Now, why did I do that on the actual kind of geese unit? That's because I want to make sure that I'm not going to have too much bulk when I'm quilting this. Like I said, I made my quilt and I machine quilted it myself on this machine here. That meant that I couldn't have bulky seams because my walking foot and my needle just wouldn't go through them as well. And it causes kind of short stitches, and it causes your machine to jam up, and nobody likes thick seams. So the easiest way to make sure that your geese lay flat is to press toward the light. And the easiest way to make sure that you get a perfect point is that if you look on the back of your geese unit, you'll notice the seams intersect about a 1/4 inch from the top of this dark wedge here. And that's right at the tip of my pen. When you're sewing these units together, place your 1/4 inch seam and aim your needle for that intersection. When you sew across it and then you look, you'll have perfect points every single time. And that's it. That is how you make a giant Flying Geese unit or Flying Goose. I mean, the jury's really still out on that. Now, like I said, there are plenty of ways to make Flying Geese. I just prefer this way for two reasons. First reason, I'm going to get perfect points every single time because I have a little bit more control. And the second, I'm not sewing on the bias at all. Some Flying Geese require that you actually sew triangles together, which means that you're dealing with biased edges a lot. And those biased edges have a tendency to stretch, especially if you're a new quilter and you're kind of tugging and you're trying to make that fabric work. Bias is great for some things, but for Flying Geese, I just don't love it. I never get the perfect geese that I want. And I love that I'm not wasting any fabric. The fact that for every one Flying Geese unit, I end up with 2 half square triangles is just icing on the cake. Thank you again for joining me. I'm Rohn Strong, and until next time, I want to wish you happy quilting. Bye, everyone.